this 25th conference Symposium of Women in Payments. So this is a section I'm really looking forward to. I don't know if you can tell, I'm actually on the edge of my seats because I'm a huge supporter of innovation. And so we're now going to talk about the Unicorn Challenge. Now, I'm not going to host this because we have a special host to do that. He will be known to many of you as a Senior Vice President of Enterprise Payments Technology and Operations at CIBC. He joined in 2008 in the Global Transaction Product and Operation role within retail business banking. And then he moved on to become Vice President, and he's about business, corporate banking technology, and his current role in technology he took on in 2011. So if anybody knows about technology, innovation, collaboration, fintech, integration, enterprise-wide, right the way across the world of payments, it's John Cowan. John, great to see you. How are you?
I'm incredibly well, Julia, and thanks for such a long introduction. It's a little overwhelming, but one of my favorite topics is innovation. So thank you everyone for joining and talking about the Unicorn Challenge. I'm incredibly excited as being a previous winner of an advocate for women in payments. We're going to talk to some of our great previous winners of the Unicorn Challenge. And our theme today is around looking back and looking forward. For most people, they know in the Canadian economy, startups are critically important and innovation is critically important, as Canada has been leapfrogged in many cases from other jurisdictions, especially in payments. It's a known fact that female entrepreneurs contribute hugely to the Canadian economy, and many of the startups actually outperform many other jurisdictions, and Canadian ones especially, in various reports have shown that they actually outperform every other country. In the 2018 budget, the federal government, knowing this, created the Women Entrepreneurial Strategy, which is the stated goal of doubling the number of women-owned businesses in Canada by 2025. And I completely support that. Let's face the challenges in front of us. Let's make sure we look at how to innovate and how to make Canada first. Why is this exciting for me? For anyone that knows me well, and a lot of people in this forum do, CIBC is an incredible supporter of the Unicorn Challenge, being the prime sponsor for a number of years. We're a leader in diversity and inclusion. We believe in the power of diversity of thought. I personally and CIBC are strong advocates for women and the power of sponsorship. And in my team, more than 63% of my leadership is actually women, and more than 70% are from diverse backgrounds. I'm incredibly lucky today to have been able to talk to Seema, our recent winner in the UK Challenge and the co-founder of Nuggets. And she has the distinction of being the first person during all of COVID to be our first challenge virtual winner. We also have with us today Lisa, the winner of the 2017 Challenge in Canada, the founder of Hyperwallet and the recent founder of Fi.Span. She's also a member of the Finance Canada FinPay Committee. And finally, we have Randa Bennett, the winner of the 2019 Challenge, co-founder of VeeLoop, and a technology that allows kids and teenagers to make online payments safety. And I think it's critically important that we look at what they've done over the period of time. Again, I'd like to thank many of the sponsors and many of the people who will go through the Unicorn Challenge, and we'll come back to that after this. But I was able to talk to the team around what inspired them to become a fintech leader. What are the obstacles they've faced, and what have they overcome? How can women fintech leaders benefit from pitching in the Unicorn Challenge? What advice would you offer to other women considering going down this path? I think it's critical at CIBC and critical within Women in Payments to continue to embrace this as a way forward to ensure that we have the best possible outcome from Canada. And with that, we have a great video that I'll show you now around the discussions we had.
So when I think about what inspired me to become a fintech entrepreneur, I think we want to go back to, what inspired me to be an entrepreneur. And I'm an example of an accidental entrepreneur. And I was working as an engineer way back in 1999. And I started working from a merchant's perspective, processing credit cards. And as you start to unbundle the payments system and start to understand just even a little bit about it, it becomes really, really fascinating and also really irritating. You can see lots and lots of problems to be solved. So from that perspective, my inspiration, if you will, was rage, anger at how things worked, and completely ignorant and uninformed belief in self that could offer something to improve the state of the art. So that was what originally inspired me in my first company. That was a really long journey. And then what you realize once you're in financial services and once you're in payments is it really, really is an extremely interesting industry and subset of an industry. So when I sold my first company and then had a year off and thought about what I really wanted to do next, the pull of payments was inexorable. And so the second time, I'm facing it more as an industry participant who is enamored with the industry. There's still lots and lots of problems to solve, but lots of opportunities as well.
And about 4 or 5 years ago, my husband had his credit card used fraudulently online. He had to cancel the card. We had to wait for 2 weeks for the card to come through the post, and then had to plug in all of that data across over 100 online locations. And it was really at that point, penny dropped, and we realized, oh my God, none of us actually own any of our personal or our payment information. And we realized this is something that needs to be addressed, and it's a real problem. And because Alistair had also come from a product background, on the technical and strategy side, we both did very different things, and we found the challenge really. So yeah, that's what we've taken on. We absolutely believe people should own their own personal data, and that privacy is a fundamental human right, and the way that it's stored today is completely broken. So we've got our mission, and really that's what inspired the creation of Nuggets, and what inspires us to run the business essentially.
It's actually problems that are faced. So the first product I created in fintech was born out of out of a need. My daughter was about 13 and she was constantly chasing me around the house, asking me to pay for something. And then I thought, well, why can't she send me the basket and I kind of process it and pay for it in my own time? So that kind of was the light bulb moment, and that need. And I kept looking, I kept researching, and I couldn't find the product. So I went and created VeeLoop, which is the fintech product that I won Women in Payment, Unicorn Challenge with.
So the biggest obstacles that I've faced and how I've overcome them, I think the number one is around funding.
The biggest obstacle that I ever faced, certainly as a first-time entrepreneur, was financing.
Some of the ones that you hear over and over again, of course, is raising money, and that's an obstacle for every entrepreneur, and particularly female entrepreneurs.
Female founders, I think, receive only just over 2% of VC capital. And obviously that's a huge issue, right? Because we all need capital to realise our products, commercialise these, and then take those to market. And I think really there is just don't underestimate the amount of effort that it takes, and not taking no for an answer. I think when you know that there's still a way to go around the balance of female funding versus male funding, is understanding that then it becomes a numbers game. You need to eventually meet the VCs or the investors that will back you and your business. So I think one of the ways that I've overcome that is by speaking more, becoming more visible. Also, I think don't underestimate the power of a really great supportive network. I think that's one of the things I had no idea, going into this journey 4 or 5 years ago, how powerful that network can be. And that's not just with, making yourself more visible, but really, someone that you can pick up the phone to and talk about these things, and also has got your back and that can lift you on those days that you really need it.
So pitching in the Unicorn Challenge for FiSpan, which is my first opportunity to pitch, was super fun. And biggest benefit for FiSpan from that particular pitch fest was actually internal. By coming home as a very young company with a trophy that we proudly displayed in our entranceway, it made a big difference to the 5 folks that are in this little high-risk startup, and also people coming into the office.
Pitching at the Unicorn Challenge is incredibly beneficial. You not only get the opportunity to present your startup, to a number of successful women across, some of the biggest corporates globally. So you get to share your product, but you also get some really invaluable feedback. And I think that's something that, I can't stress enough. It's almost like just that alone, without even winning the Unicorn Challenge, is just a phenomenal feedback, essentially, that loop into, because a lot of the people that you're presenting to are normally those that you'd be presenting to in a commercial capacity as well, that procure services like our startups provide. So I think that's number one. And then if you do go on to win the Unicorn Challenge, I mean, I can just say from my perspective, it's been incredibly invaluable. The number of doors it's opened, whether you're talking to, some of the top banks and financial institutions, but also at the speed at which it's grown my network as a result of having, those meetings. So no, it's incredibly invaluable.
Most of all, I think the connections that you make through Women in Payments. So I was introduced to brilliant contacts in the fintech industry. Some people I'm still in touch with, and I'm constantly talking to people like in MasterCard, for example. They're absolutely brilliant. Kirsty introduced me to them, and I always pick up the phone, pick their brains on something. We talk, and I think that was really useful. Of course, there's also people start hearing about you, mentioning you in their blogs, mentioning you in articles. So we got some good PR out of it as well, which was great.
So the advice that I would offer to anyone considering setting up their own startup is that as long as you're solving a real world problem, do it. It's clearly not an easy option. Being a founder is tough, but it's so incredibly rewarding. And there's never really been a better time to set up a business, especially within fintech, than right now, given the regulatory landscape, the fact that there are now female founded VCs that you can also pitch your product to. But I once read this quote that said, if you're prepared to be the worst paid, work the longest hours, and have the most stress, you're ready to be a founder. But I would say to all of that, it's also so incredibly rewarding.
Fintech has been traditionally male dominated, but it's getting better now. So just don't ever let that intimidate you or set you back, because there are some incredible women in fintech founders that are, they've raised money, they created unicorns out there. So as intimidating as it sounds, you should still go for it and do it.
My first bit of advice is to ensure that you or your team has enough domain knowledge to not go in completely blind, and have enough domain knowledge so that you have found a niche or an opportunity that actually is worthy of starting a new fintech business. The second bit of advice I would give to someone considering entrepreneurship in fintech, specifically a woman, is that there's actually never been a better time to actually dive in and go for it. And the reason is banks are very much more open to partnering with fintechs. Venture capital is really flowing into the sector in a way like it's never been before. Doesn't mean that it's hard, doesn't mean that 9 startups out of 10 are going to fail. But there is opportunity and there is momentum around supporting young technology companies, and specifically those founded by women and visible minorities.